Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're listening. It's always a good time for Touchdown in Paradise here on the Finns Talk Sports Network. I'm Justin.
I'm Russ.
I'm Joe.
And joining us today, you may have saw him last year when he was on here, the funniest man in the South Bay, longtime Notre Dame fan, Notre Dame alumnus, Daniel Carter. Welcome back to the show.
Good to be back. I did not like how you said you got a new intro, and the first clip is of USC scoring a touchdown on Notre Dame.
Oh, man. Bobby, we got to update it.
Literally the opening clip. I think that was my senior year Bush game.
That's right.
We're unbiased. This is a college football podcast.
Yeah, but I'm biased.
Well, before we get into what happened last weekend, which was an excellent weekend of college football, the coaching carousel has arrived, and I am jacked. I am pumped up every sense of the word because Gus Malzahn is gone from UCF. I've not been this happy all year, boys.
The biggest news of the weekend by far in college football. UCF is getting a new coach.
Yeah. Well, I'm just very excited. I'm jacked about that. He went over to Florida State to be their offensive coordinator. First of all, Florida State, I thought you're supposed to improve your offense after one of the worst years ever for you. And what is this going to do? Russ, what do you think about that? Right move for Florida State?
I don't know. They're losing a lot of commitments this year. They're losing more recruits than they are getting. So my take. Maybe it'll be a better offensive coordinator.
That happens a lot. I find when some guys just don't have the head coaching. Like, look at Al Golden for us. He was terrible at Miami. He's just like an amazing defensive coordinator, so it might work out.
Must be the name Golden. I know you're very familiar with Golden Tate. Isn't that right?
Oh, yeah.
That's a story I don't know where you can tell on the podcast, but feel free. But some other things that happened here this weekend. Neil Brown was fired by West Virginia. Mac Brown, longtime head coach here. I believe he was the active leader in wins, fired from USC. Former Browns head coach Freddie Kitchens takes over as interim. Purdue fires Ryan Walters after a 1-11 season. And every team called the Owls ended up firing their coach, including Florida Atlantic, Rice, Kennesaw State, and Temple. Joe, is there anything here that really shocked you that happens, or is this all to be expected and we're seeing some more?
I mean, expect to see more. It's just the beginning. There's still a lot of football to be played, so you never know. But no, there's nothing really out of the ordinary. You go 1-11, you're obviously going to get fired. West Virginia has had great.
1-11?
Yeah, but they just re-signed. They just signed him to a long deal. They're not going to fire him now. They're not Texas A&M.
Or no, they went 2-10, right? So they didn't go 1-11.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, still, if you have that bad of a record, you're definitely on the hot seat.
Yeah, Dano, who do you think is going to be next, if there is going to be one?
I don't know. I was really thinking about who you want as your school's coach next, but I mean Ryan Day, if he gets clobbered in the playoff, maybe that kind of scares me because I think they might go for Freeman because he's an Ohio State grad. But I think Ryan Day's probably safe for this year. But they're so pissed about the Michigan. I don't think they'll ever fire him?
I think they don't win it all. He's done.
Oh, you do? You think? What if they lose?
If he wins it all, that saves his job. That's it. You can't lose. You can't lose to Michigan 3 straight years
4.
and 4, even worse, and expect to keep your job.
Okay, so there you go.
That's what I think. I mean,
why wouldn't they go after Freeman? You know, he says he played for them, so
he's a hot name. The Bears might want him.
Yeah, I don't think he'll do that, but I think he might. I don't ever blame a coach for going to their alma mater. Because like the one thing I'm like, it's okay if you actually went to school there. I get it, but I don't want it to happen. Otherwise, I don't know who else sucked this year. It was supposed to be pretty good.
SC.
Lincoln's not going anywhere yet, though. I really don't think so. But they were Kelly, maybe. I mean, LSU's not happy with Kelly.
I can see him jumping ship. He's not a big hot water guy.
Yeah,
I feel like he's going to last one more year, and if he doesn't win, that's when they'll can him. But who knows? Those donors down there at LSU, they know what they're doing.
I would think Michigan, maybe if they didn't get that huge, what was the quarterback's name that they paid like $12 million for? I think that's safe.
Bryce Underwood.
Bryce
I
Underwood.
mean,
Thank you,
the
Russ.
head coach just beat Ohio State, so I think he's good.
Yeah, he's safe.
One more year.
Probably safe. But they were from national championship to a very average season. It's not great, but they lost
one of the toughest
everybody.
schedules in college football. So
I mean,
Yeah, they lost so many players. So maybe not. Purdue.
Dan, to answer your question,
Purdue getting a new coach?
they fired their coach. Yeah.
Okay, so Purdue's on the list. Okay. Yeah, that's
Kyle Whittingham from Utah.
I like the FAU coach. I don't know if you guys saw any of his like opening remark. I like that guy.
oh yeah, the guy from Texas Tech they just hired.
I like him. He's got some energy. I thought they should have gone Nevin Shapiro, but that's just me.
Mm-hmm.
Who is the Arizona State coach? I don't know, but I feel like he should be top of the list for most people. I think he's been.
So that guy, Kenny Dillingham, like you said about coaches going back to their alma mater, he actually played at Arizona State.
Oh, there you go.
It's going to take a lot to get him away.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I think Beamer at South Carolina is probably happy, but could do a little better, maybe. Maybe a high commodity if Ohio State wanted something like that. I don't know. But
I mean, that could be an interesting one to watch if that comes open.
yeah, I think the Ohio State would be pumped to hire that guy.
Another name to watch, I would say, is Rhett Lashley at SMU. You know that some other program could buy him away. Like, say, if James Franklin's done at Penn State, what happens then?
Is he a Penn State guy? Because, I mean, again, I'll still say they'll look at Al Golden because he's a Penn State guy.
I don't think he wants to be a head coach.
I mean, he may not, but, I mean, if your alma mater calls you and you're, get offered the head coaching job, you'll definitely consider it.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think both our coordinators will be pawned after in different ways, but
They are
SMU
paid, aren't they?
What's up?
The DC and OC for Notre Dame are the two highest paid.
I don't know. That sounds maybe. I don't really. A lot of people kind of bitch about how much we pay players or coaches. Like, it doesn't come out of my bank account. Like, I don't care.
It comes out of your former tuition.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything. So what do I care what they pay?
I think my opinion, Ryan Day, if he doesn't win it all, you paid $20 million for transfers this year. You got as Nick Saban would say, you paid $20 million for players, and you don't win it all. You're shit out of luck. Hit the road.
Well, it's not even that. It's the fact that they paid that much and then still got ass kicked by Michigan. Like,
what if you pay $50 million for Nick Saban to go to Ohio State?
I could see him doing that. And Nick Saban doesn't want to come back.
Yeah, but for $50 million, people will do a lot of things.
Yeah, but the guy's just sitting on his dock on his boat fishing.
Yeah, I don't think he's not
making a crap ton of money.
What is he
going on
15 years younger than Paterno was? And Bowden? He could be an elderly coach.
I do like him on game day, though. He's at.
I love him on game day. He's way funnier than I realized when he's on there. He's actually got a good sense of humor.
Like him and Belichick, once you take them off the sidelines and put them in front of a camera, they're all of a sudden very charming people that you want to listen to.
Yeah, I agree. That's why or at least that Saban was obviously such a great recruiter. You get that.
Mm-hmm. Now we'll dive in. This was a very, very exciting weekend of college football, starting with an 8 overtime showdown between Georgia and Georgia Tech. Came down to the last 2-point conversion in 8th overtime, 42-44. I don't know if you guys were watching this game on Black Friday, but I was entertained to the max, sitting there with my whole family. I can't remember the last time my whole family was sitting there watching a football game together, but here we were, and I enjoyed every second of it. Joe, what went wrong for Georgia that they had to correct so quickly to be able to pull this out?
I mean, we've talked about Georgia, I feel like, multiple weeks this season. I mean, their offense is inconsistent. Their defense got ran over. I mean, we also talked about Georgia Tech and how physical they can be. You know, we saw it first week. Yes, Florida State was trash, but, you know, they manhandled them. They did it a little bit to Notre Dame before Notre Dame got a hold of that game. Georgia Tech was not a pushover.
13.
Yeah, but again, they were in that game for a bit, so you can't single them out. It just shows how good Notre Dame is.
They also didn't have their starting quarterback, which I'll give them that. But they're really good with Haynes in there.
But again, it's just just the point of Georgia has issues. It's straightforward to that, and I mean ultimately Georgia Tech lost that game. If there's not a fumble that Georgia Tech. We're talking about how it's a big upset for them, Georgia Tech for them to win. So, that's just where it comes down to. Hats off to Georgia for keep playing. I mean, I turned it off after a point because I thought it was over. So, hats off to Georgia.
Just goes to show you it's never over till it's over. Isn't that right, Russ?
You're correct.
I watched it the whole game. It was awesome. But I thought Georgia Tech should have gone for 2 in the first round of overtime. When they had the ball second, scored. I think you go for 2 when you're on the road and the other team's coming back the whole time. I think you should just do that. I think that would have been the right call. This shootout thing with the 2-point conversions at the end over and over again, you never know what's going to happen there.
Mm-hmm. Never forget what you took from us.
I'm with Joe on the fumble was a big play, but you can't be on the road in between the hedges up 17-0 going into the third quarter and not keep your foot on the pedal. Also, why weren't they going you stopped Georgia on some of those 2-point conversions? Why not try 1 2-point conversion where you go to your bread and butter and let Haynes King run it? Because he was gashing that defense all game. Why don't you just give him a shot? You stopped him. If he doesn't get it, you're in the same fucking place. Excuse me, I don't like to swear. But, why don't you do that? But you can't give a team like Georgia, a coach like Kirby Smart, an inch. If you give him an inch, he's going to take it.
You have to be perfect in a game like that, especially away. You can't fumble. I agree with Dano and you, Russ. You at least go for 2 once. You're the away team. You have nothing to lose. Everyone tips the hat at you for essentially giving your best shot against Georgia. Because who thought it was going to be that close of a game? I didn't. I thought Georgia was going to blow them out, and we'd be talking about how Georgia should be considered in the playoff, blah, blah, blah. But now it's are they that good? I mean, again, they're probably already in, potentially, but
the announcers let us know it over and over again. If Georgia wins, they're in for sure.
They're in for sure. I'm calling it right. Lock it in. I don't care what happened. Lock it in.
They could lose by 50 to Texas, and they'll still make it.
Lock it in.
Lock it up.
The next game, I was genuinely surprised at this. This Michigan team, who cannot pass the ball forward, somehow defeated Ohio State 13-10 in Columbus. We all saw it happen. 2 interceptions for Davis Warren, the walk-on senior. Will Howard looked clueless out there. Couldn't get what he wanted going. Ohio State stopped targeting their best receivers in the second half. How do you expect to win a game like that? Start with Dano.
Well, I missed the game because I was tailgating at the Coliseum, so I was at that game. But all I've heard about it is that Ryan Day tried to prove that Ohio State could be like a tough team and like just try to run the ball way too much and just try to outmuscle Michigan. It just didn't work out. But I've only seen a couple of the highlights. So.
Mm-hmm. You've got a good tailgate story we'll get to in a minute when we talk about the Notre Dame game. Joe.
I mean, it just goes to show, when you don't have to be the best team to win a game in college football, and I think that's what makes college football so good. Ohio State, they couldn't punch it in. I mean, how many times did they have it in the red zone and they couldn't punch it in? So if you can't score touchdowns, you're going to lose games. And in a rivalry game like that, when that was the national championship for Michigan, you can't hold anything back. And I think just Ryan Day is just not a good coach. He can beat all the nobodies, but when it comes to the big rivalry game, he can't do it. And I think what we said earlier I agree with Russ. If he doesn't win the national championship, he's gone. You can't go 3-4 years without beating Michigan. And you can't do it without beating them down. So
what if he gets to the final game, the championship game?
He has to win.
You don't think that saves his job, winning 3 playoff games?
If you know Ohio State fans, they are –
No, but the ones are in charge.
My Ohio State friends are furious. Like, they are – if it's national championship or bust. Like, it is that clear. Because that's what it was at the beginning of the season. That's what it was at the Oregon game. And then to lose to Michigan the way they did, no. And again, this isn't the first time. If this was the first time they lost to Michigan, forgivable. But it's not. This is the fourth time. I think it's the third time, but whatever.
4th in a row. And then they didn't play the COVID year. But how many times did they get stopped in the red zone? Like I said, I didn't see the game, but did that happen over and over again? That Ohio State was.
It happened multiple times. They had an interception at like the 15, 20-yard line, and then they drove down.
I mean, we can give Michigan credit. Like, they've been playing better late. Like, you barely lose to Indiana at the end. You beat Michigan. You killed Northwestern. And then you beat Ohio State. So they've been playing better. And the Big Ten's tough this year. So, I mean, you got to play. You played Texas. You played Oregon. You played SC when they were looking good. And you beat SC before they started collapsing.
Yeah, legit schedule for sure.
You played Illinois, who was still ranked. I mean, their schedule. So they've been playing a really tough schedule. And you go 7-5 in that schedule. And losing how many players they lost to the NFL, not to mention your head coach and multiple assistant coaches.
I still think their offense is not very good. Michigan's offense, as Justin said, could barely move the ball.
I mean, it was classic Big Ten ugly football.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
I mean, that's the best way to describe it. It was Big Ten, just run between the tackles. It was not how Ohio State should have played.
Yeah, that's what I got.
Not when you have Jeremiah Smith, who's not the best wide receiver, the top 2 best wide receiver in the game, right? Freshman.
It's either him or Travis Hunter, probably.
Ryan Williams.
Alabama.
Yeah.
I mean, you also went away your 2 other. Carnell Tate didn't play that great, but you still went away from him. Who is it? Mbuka or Mbukwe? How many targets? I was trying to find that. How many targets these guys had? They stopped throwing the ball, and Will Howard did not throw the ball well.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what we saw him do at Kansas State. He'd have his big moments where he looked like he could dominate anybody, but then he would also fold in the critical ones.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Ohio State would have been better off with McCord, the Syracuse guy who left? Was that Kyle McCord?
That was the guy who was there.
Do you think they'd be better off with him than with the switch here?
I just never thought that was a good
fit.
Great
against Miami, but Miami's a terrible defense.
Right. We saw what Kyle McCord did at Syracuse this past week against Miami. Pulled the upset one last game here. this new coach for Syracuse, he's got some swagger. You see him after the game. He's like, hey, Coach Dabo, I got you in. Congratulations. Yeah, if Pete was here, he'd be cussing that guy out, but he's not here, so we can praise him.
Pete has no. I'm telling you guys, like Pete is such a oxymoron. He doesn't realize what he says 90% of the time. He says, "I'm gonna kill someone if Alabama makes it," and then he's like, "Oh, who do I want to win? I want SMU." I'm like, you realize if you don't want Alabama to make the top 12, not the top 12, excuse me, the college football playoff, you should be rooting for Clemson so hard. But Pete's just like, fuck Dabo. I hate Alabama. It's just, I'm like, start thinking, Pete. You're not here, but we're gonna talk a little shit on Pete right now. Start thinking. Use that brain. I know you're smart.
I'm rooting for SMU for sure. Right now, we're slotted to play Alabama. I don't want that shit. I want to get them out of there.
But no, imagine Alabama having to go to Notre Dame in the thick of December winter and play Notre Dame.
I know, but I still would rather play in Indiana, who's used to the cold, than Alabama, who's not used to the cold.
Mm-hmm. If that did happen, Dana, would you go to the game?
I'm working on it. No matter what, it's going to be a home game, it seems like. I have a family Christmas thing I'm supposed to do the 21st. So I want the Friday night 20th game, which is what I'm hearing we might get. Don't want Alabama, though. Don't mind almost anybody else. I think I'd rather play Oregon than Alabama, honestly. Just because of that last time we played Alabama. It's still in my head. Even though it's not Saban. It's like,
you talking about the 2020 playoff?
Yeah. 2012. Oh, 20. No, I was thinking 2012. 2020 was not nearly as bad, actually. I'm thinking of the Manti-Te'o year.
Right.
2020 was like not the worst embarrassing thing, but 2012 absolutely was. And I was there in Miami for that one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but it's not Saban's Alabama. Like, I don't know. Are they that good? They got crushed by Oklahoma. I don't know. I think, would you rather play Indiana or Alabama?
The one thing that does scare me is that Kalen DeBoer, he knows how to win big games and then lose the very next week for a game that he's overlooking. And we've seen that last year at Washington, and we've seen that this year at Alabama. Last year, he just had a magical squad at Washington that went all the way to the very end. And then this year, well, it's a rebuild year. You're following up the greatest coach of all time, and everybody still expects you to go all the way. So it's heavy expectations coupled with you're rebuilding and retooling this roster. You're getting it into your own vision. In Hebrew, we say B'Tselem Elohim, which means created in the image of God. Well, this is an image of Kalen DeBoer.
I guess. I mean, he still came in from Washington going to the championship game with a way better roster at Alabama. I think he could have. I think he would have done better than what he did this year. I thought he would be fine.
We got to talk about this game next. I am so glad this one is back. Being somebody who grew up in Texas A&M are back on playing every year. And this game, by the way, was the highest get-in price in college football history for a regular season game. $1,100 minimum you'd pay to get into Kyle Field that night. They went on to embarrass the Aggies on their home field 17-7, holding the offense without a score. The only time they scored was a pick six. And just complete domination. I can't say I'm surprised. I figured it was going to go this way. But, Russ, were you surprised how this game went?
No, not really. I didn't think Texas A&M was really going to put up a fight. Texas just a better overall football team. I was kind of looking for it. I watched the game, but I wasn't really surprised in that aspect. I didn't even think Texas A&M deserved a shot to be in the SEC title game, so I was happy.
Mm-hmm. And Joe, I know you're a big Mike Elko guy. What do you think of his decision to go for it on fourth down late in the game?
I mean, the game is you have to do it. I mean, if you don't, you hadn't proven to really do much against their offense. I mean, I know they only put up 17 points, but still, it's the point. They had been dominating the clock. You had to get points. You simply had to get points.
And Dano, I know you had just gotten back from the Notre Dame game at this point. Did you get a chance to catch this one? And if so,
I watched more of this because somewhat invested because we beat A&M. I just wanted to see how we compare to Texas because that was also at A&M. Who's playing quarterback for A&M?
Marcel Reed.
All right, so it's a different.
From Montgomery Bell Academy in Nashville, Tennessee.
Hmm.
I lived like right down the street when I lived in Nashville, so.
That's right. So Hunter Weigman started the Notre Dame game, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But it sounds like their offense was shit, even with the other guy. But I don't know. I don't think it shows that Texas is that good either. It doesn't seem like anybody's the old Alabama or Georgia's of like 5 years ago. This year.
And my family all went to Texas. My dad and brother were complaining all night and even leading up to the game about Quinn Ewers' recent play, as in he's not been that good. And I know it's a lot easier to nitpick your own team, but I thought he was fine. But then you see very questionable throws to last game, and I'm like, okay, maybe they do have something. Say if he goes down for any reason, how much do we believe Arch could go in and win the SEC title, Joe?
I mean, didn't he lead a drive and score a touchdown, if I recall correctly? Am I wrong there? Yeah.
Down. Yep, he did.
He had a rushing. I think you could throw. I think you could throw Arch Manning in now, and he could maybe not win you the game, but it'd be pretty competitive. I mean, going off of what you were saying, Justin. I mean, we've always known Quinn Ewers was a gunslinger. So I mean, the fact that he is going to throw him into tight windows and stuff like that, it's bound to happen. When you're banged up too, you've been battling injuries all year. You're not going to be as sharp as someone that has played, all 11, 12 games. So, got to. It's not really surprising he's not been as sharp.
That's right. Moving on here. Now we're going to talk a little bit longer about this, hopefully, because we're talking about how 2 late pick sixes sealed the game for Notre Dame against USC, 49-35.
You gotta get another beer for this.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll start with Russ, and then we'll get to the Notre Dame guys. Russ, did you watch this game? And if so, how much faith do you have in Notre Dame to go deep into the playoffs?
Well, Justin, no, I did not. I'm moving out of my place on the 7th, so I didn't want to pay an extra 30 days of cable. So like right when the Notre Dame game, I'm not spending $82 for 6 days. And I figured out my situation, but the minute that I came back, that game like cut off. So I didn't see the game. I mean, I think their defense is solid enough to carry them there, and like we've seen, there's no besides I guess Oregon. And they have their issues too. There's no clear-cut team that's just more dominant than everybody else. So I think they can make a run. Riley Leonard seems like he's figured it out a little bit. And, I mean, not good you give up 45 points defensively against USC, but I think that defense maybe just had a little lapse.
45.
Justin just said 40. What? I mean, I didn't watch the game. Didn't you just say 45?
35. 35.
35. 35 is still a lot of points.
Yeah. 10 fewer.
10 fewer, but with the defensive head coach hanging his hat on defense.
Well, they scored 14 points on defense. They had 200 yards on defense.
Now, Joe, you watching it through your TV screen as opposed to Dana who watched it in the stadium, what were your emotions like? Did you at any point have any fear that they could drop the game?
No. Notre Dame was the dominant, better team. I think USC found their future quarterback, though, and I think they have some great weapons. In the future, I would definitely not overlook SC as I'm not saying Notre Dame did, but SC is going to be better. Other emotions, defense came up clutch when we needed it to, even though they weren't perfect. I give credit to Lincoln Riley. He picked on Christian Gray, and it worked for him for a while. Offense, just keep running the damn ball, please, because I don't think I don't think Riley Leonard's the best quarterback passing the ball. I think he has his moments. But I think your best way to score points is running the ball, and running the ball some more, because our O-line's decent and we have two great running backs, in my opinion, and a quarterback that can run as well. So I think ultimately I don't want to play Alabama. I'm with you, Dano. I don't want to play Alabama in the first round. I'll take ASU. I'll take SMU. I don't really care who it is. I don't want to play the SEC in the first round. Second round, I'll take them on. But I still think the offense needs more time to get more packages in, because it's.
Well, that time is over, Joe.
I mean, you have until Christmas to keep implementing, keep putting in stuff. So I mean,
yeah, we're in practice. I mean, that time is over. It's now. I mean, you play Alabama.
Oh no, I mean, again, I'm not the selection committee. I'm just saying, if I had to pick someone to play, I don't want to play Alabama first round.
I mean, I think they'll probably get the 12th seed by the end of this, because I think Penn State will drop because they'll lose to Oregon. So they'll probably get the 5-12 game, because they'll be the only non-conference one-loss team left, which will probably be ASU. And hope if it's ASU, hope to God Notre Dame just ramrods that school down in Tempe.
I mean, that's the dream. That's the dream scenario, in my opinion. SMU and then beat Boise State, but we'll see.
So our resident leprechaun here, who was at the tailgate first thing at the crack of dawn, take me through everything that went down.
It's a little. I was pissed because it was such an early 12:30 kickoff. It's not enough tailgating time. Wife wasn't feeling great in the morning. Took a while to get moving. Only got there like 9:15 for a 12:30 game. It was awesome. The weather was great and high spirits, but equal nerves. That's kind of it was like a play-in game, like a college basketball play-in game. That's what it sort of felt like to me. We played Rutgers a few years ago. And then it was just thoughts on the actual game. Oh, you want to hear about the tailgating? Obviously, I met Joe Montana. He was at our tailgate, and he was representing this Guinness booth. Here's us. There we go.
Hey,
so cool.
So cool.
And he was representing his Guinness booth, and he had to wait in this long line to go talk to him. But then he went to go get a beer by himself with his family, and the security guard was like, "You should take a picture of that guy." And Joe was like, "He's not waiting in line." And the security guard was like, "Well, look at him." He's like, "Okay." And then he took a picture with me. The only thing I said to him was, I said, "Man, you really like Guinness, huh, man?" And he says to me, "I'm getting paid so much for this shit, dude." That was it. The only thing Joe Montana has ever said to me. That's what was great. Then we had really terrible seats because we got them like the USC, what they give to the Notre Dame section, way in the far corner end zone. But we saw both pick sixes came towards us, which was pretty cool. So that was exciting. And overall, as the gameplay goes, I'm hoping Jeremiah Love is healthy. Worried about that. Don't know what happened there. He's like my favorite player in 5 years, probably. I love watching him play. Leonard, I think he's getting better and better at the pass. I really don't think our receivers are that good. There's a lot of drops this whole season. He'd have better, but he can run and he can throw. Our tight ends are good. Our receivers are just letting me down all the time. I don't know where Jordan Faison's been, or I don't know. Chris Mitchell came in so big, and nobody's really, when like we need that Golden Tate or Will Fuller type guy that we've had before, but we don't really have one on this team, I don't think. But I think they're really good. When I was at one of our game watches here in Hermosa Beach at Patrick Malloy's, this was game 3. So we just lost to Northern Illinois, and we're playing Miami, Ohio, and Riley threw, I think, 2 picks in a row, or just looked terrible. And everyone's bitching about him. And we're hanging out with this young couple, and my wife gets on the table, like, we gave this guy $1 million, and this is what he does for us. And the guy we were hanging out, that's what I'm talking about. We didn't give him our $1 million. This guy and his wife or his girlfriend, I think, they just get up and leave. And we were hanging out with him. And then the guy who runs the game watch came over to me and he was like, oh, by the way, that's Riley Leonard's cousin. I'm like, what? Why the hell didn't you tell us that beforehand? Before everyone that's born was my cousin. It was fake. We felt so bad. I felt so bad. I found the kid on Instagram. I DM'd him, and he's like, it's okay. I just left because I was too nervous. You guys weren't that bad. And he's come back to game since and actually saw him at the Coliseum. So that's all worked out. But we felt terrible at that moment. And then Riley, I think he's impressed me. I don't think he's the most accurate passer, but I really think he's a gamer. And like, kind of trust to just do everything he can to try to win, but he might fuck up.
No, great analysis, great breakdown. And so cool about Montana that that's what Joe Montana tells you. If you never see him again, then you could say that Joe Montana said they're paying me so much.
He's so on. That's why he's the GOAT, you know? I think Tom Brady would have been like, oh, yeah, Guinness is a great product, and I support everything, you know? But not Montana. He shoots it real.
Gosh, you're not drinking a Guinness right now? Come on. Little product placement.
Yeah, it's true. I could, but they're a little rough on the poops, you know, if you drink too many of them. Goodness. Very slimy.
Oh, man.
I'm not working for them. They're not paying me all this shit. They're paying Montana all this shit.
Yeah, come on, Guinness. How about you sponsor ponchos?
That'd be cool. Guinness sponsors a Mexican restaurant.
Mm-hmm. Or actually our once a month thing at Hennessy's. That makes more sense.
That would make a lot of sense.
Come on, Guinness. Once a month at Hennessy's Roof Deck.
Oh, their Guinness reps are definitely going to see this podcast.
You never know. Come on.
You never know.
We're very optimistic here, right, Russ?
Yeah.
Big
He's
time.
a Jets fan.
I just did the Porto podcast. You know, Pac, who's a Poncho a lot. You know, he has a podcast, the Porto podcast, or El Porto, California.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is going to get more views, that one or this one?
I don't know how long he's been doing that, but I know that Pac did play baseball at UT. If he's still got any pull from that,
he's a national champion.
Yeah, maybe he is going to get more than us. We're just some guys who enjoy talking football.
It was strictly about El Porto, though. That's all that podcast is about. I'm pretty sure this one's going to beat it.
Yeah. Before we go on here, one big issue that's been raised this week has been rather not raising the flag, but planting the flag in the middle of the field. Michigan planted their flag at midfield in the Block O in Columbus. A fight broke out. Pepper spray had to be broken out to use it to break up the fight. Florida also planted their flag at midfield in Tallahassee against Florida State. Another fight broke out. Mike Norvell had to rip it off himself. And then Texas was stopped in their tracks by Sark while they were trying to go celebrate on the A&M logo and said, no, we're not going to be that team. Get back in the locker room. How concerned are we that this could create an even worse trend going forward, Russ?
They're college kids. Whatever. I don't care. Baker did it.
Yep, he was almost the catalyst for this generation doing it when he did it. Joe, any thoughts on this?
I mean, it just puts a bad scar on all these games. It looks bad for the universities. It's kind of funny, Texas threw all the bottles and stuff on the field when they didn't get a call earlier in the season. They start doing that. It's just bad sportsmanship. I get that they are college students, and these are big rivalry games. So there's a lot of emotion involved, but got to have some sort of sportsmanship and, just be proud of the win and move on. But I get it. If you've ever played a sport and you're playing your big rival and you actually beat them, especially like a team like Michigan, you kind of want to just rub it in just a little bit more. So, I don't think it's going to be a problem in the future. I think it's just what it is. It's an unfortunate event.
I do not see the big deal whatsoever. Also, the Arizona State devil pitchfork. I thought was kind of cool in Arizona. It's like, oh, we did play a flag. We just played a pitchfork. Michigan State did this to us when I was a senior. And I don't know. It's just kids and flags. Like, who cares? It's a piece of. I don't get why anyone. I think it's just everything's getting a little soft these days in the whole sport. Like, you're allowed to put a flag down and then have a little fight over it. I'm not mad at any of it.
Yeah, my take is if you don't want it to happen, then win the game. Win the game and defend your home turf. And then you prevent this 100%.
Well, yeah, that's what I want to see is the team that loses the game bad and still does it.
Whatever happens.
Big deal is it? I also know if we ever did that to another team, it would be like giant news. I feel like if Notre Dame was playing.
Yeah, I feel like Notre Dame is held to such a high standard.
Yeah,
If they ever did this, it'd just be a huge damper, and the media would never stop talking about it.
Yeah, right. So,
Hey, Notre Dame fans just punch other players in the face. No big deal.
well, they had a helmet on. Like,
And the fact that he didn't break his hand punching that helmet just shows how crazy Riley Mills and how strong Riley Mills is.
I don't know why he did that. I don't know why Bo Collins pushed that guy at A&M. Remember that? We got away with that one too.
Russ, I'm sure you saw the Arizona assistant coach headbutted his player with the helmet on, started bleeding.
Oh, good for him. They also our mascots got into a fight.
That's right.
Well, that's awesome.
What's the Wildcats' name?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Oh, come on.
There's too many Wildcats. They're all Wildcats, especially in basketball.
Willie.
You have a whole Final Four of Wildcats.
Mm-hmm. Kentucky, Kansas State, Arizona, Northwestern. Now let's take a look here at who is in.
It's Wilbur.
Wilbur, thank you. Wilbur and Sparky.
Wilbur and Wilma, the Wildcat.
Thank you. Now, who is in? So right now, the college football playoff, the rankings just came out. Alabama is ranked over Miami with 3 losses. The way that I see it, Joel Klatt sees it, some of the analysts see it, these are the teams that are 100% in right now, no matter what happens. Oregon, Texas, Penn State, Indiana, SMU, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Tennessee. The win and in scenario, the teams who need to win their conference title to get in. Clemson, Georgia, Boise State, UNLV, Arizona State, Iowa State. Not all these teams are going to make it, but whoever does gets in. You don't, you're out. The ones who are hoping for a miracle, at least the way I saw it, Alabama, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Army, and Miami. Any thoughts on who do you feel like should be locked in right now that's maybe in a hope for a miracle? Starting with Dano.
Well, first of all, I put Georgia absolutely in. I don't know. I don't think you can leave them. The SEC runner-up, because the committee has said they're not going to punish teams for having to play in a conference championship and losing, right? So they're not going to kick them out. If they're already, 7th, I think Georgia is. So I think they're definitely in. Alabama's pretty much in, barring Clemson beating SMU. And then I think maybe SMU could get that spot. And then that's pretty much it. It's interesting as an Irish fan what you're rooting for because you want the 5 seed, but you also don't want to play Alabama. So I feel like if Georgia beats Texas, Georgia gets the bye. I think Texas would drop down above us, whereas Georgia was below us, knocking us back a spot to play Indiana versus playing Alabama. This is like every game can affect the whole thing, which is really cool about this next weekend, especially because we don't have to worry about anything. We just have to sit back and watch.
Russ, do you still see a potential scenario here where the Big 12 misses out and Army beats Tulane very badly that they get in?
Not anymore, Justin. Last week, maybe I was kind of hoping for it last week, but they lost to Memphis. I mean, Georgia's in, no question about that. I basically what I saw is Alabama's basically in, unless Clemson wins, right. And then you take 2 ACC teams. But basically what I saw of that thing is they're not going to punish. It's basically not going to change for teams who aren't playing. So Alabama's in. So if you don't want Alabama in, you should be rooting for Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because Alabama's in. If they're not going to punish a team that's not playing and they're already in, they're going to be in there.
But they still might put Alabama in over SMU. I can see them doing that.
I don't think they're going to punish SMU for losing a title game. Depending, I mean, if you get blown out 50-13, that's a different story, I guess. But I don't see it happening. I'm fine with Alabama in over all these other schools, and where they put them. Look at ASU. I mean, ASU's what, 2-1 against the top 25, because I know you guys talk about SEC bias, and really they're only played one ranked team remaining who's in the top 25, and they lost to Cincinnati, who's not bowl eligible. Yes, Alabama lost 2 bad games, but Oklahoma and Vanderbilt are bowl eligible. And they have a quality loss to Tennessee. They beat Georgia, who's going to be in.
Are you comparing them to Arizona State?
We have an old private conversation. I mean, they're talking about SEC bias. This is what I mean.
No, but Arizona State has their own little pathway. Just they have to win their conference. So it's different.
Anybody from the Big 12. I'm taking SEC. Anybody from the Big 12. Iowa State too.
If Alabama was in the Big 12, then they'd be in because they'd win it, but they're not. So I think that's just a completely different conversation.
Well, the conversation is
Alabama versus Miami or
SEC bias. It's a better conference. I'm sorry. I take the SEC. I take the 5th ranked SEC team over the Big 12 championship team all day.
Probably. Yeah, I would too, but that's not how it works in sports. There's pathways to get in. You know, the AL East can be much tougher than the NL West. Not this year, but the NL Central, maybe that was not terrible. So there's different ways to get into play at postseason. There's plenty of good teams that don't always get into postseason in every other sports because their division's different. Right?
I want to get Joe in here. Thoughts?
No, I mean, I think again, it's gonna. We're talking about it right now, like it's all set in stone. When we have championship games, you know, as we've seen the past 2 weeks, crazy things have happened. Yeah, I agree. I think Alabama's already in. I would have liked to see South Carolina instead of Alabama because I think South Carolina, you know, has played pretty well, especially of late. But really, it's insignificant. It's insignificant. I mean, I think Alabama will be in. Yeah, I look at it. UNLV is not going to be in it. I think Arizona State beats Iowa State, which I'm sure we'll talk about when we pick games. There's still so much to happen to really project anything. I think it's just where, like, for me as a Notre Dame fan, where I want Notre Dame to fall, who would I want to play, and then what are some other great matchups that I'd want to watch, essentially.
But then, so if you think South Carolina over Alabama, how much do you weigh head-to-head? Because I feel like same record head-to-head, it's got to go to the head-to-head. You beat them. How could they get in over you?
That is true. That is true. I mean, South Carolina also beat Vanderbilt, and Alabama lost to Vanderbilt. So, I mean,
it's not head-to-head. That's transitive property. I guess more than head-to-head. I think she always matter. I really do. In every sport, I think head-to-head should be the tiebreaker.
Yeah, I mean, again, when you do play, you do have the win advantage. True, but I mean,
South Carolina is one of the hottest teams in college football.
True. One thing I heard, I think it was today, which was an interesting point, was that when they lost to LSU, their quarterback was out, and they barely lost that game, right? And so, like, you can do the reverse of how they kept Florida State out last year because their quarterback wasn't going to be in the game. So can you weigh that? It's like, well, they didn't have their star quarterback in the game that they barely lost at the end, the same way that they didn't let Florida State in because Jordan Travis got hurt.
I mean, I'd be happy because, like, you know, Sellers is one of the most, like, electric football players out there. So, I mean, like, I don't think it happens, but that guy's electric. and I'd love to see him play on a big stage like that.
That kid is box office if you haven't watched South Carolina all year.
And he's going to be around for a while, so just get used to the name.
Mm-hmm. Lenoris is his name. Lenoris Sellers.
Well, at that point, maybe I'd rather play Alabama than South. Maybe South Carolina's better. Maybe I'd rather play Alabama.
They're just a hotter team right now. And I feel like with Notre Dame, they have the chance to really gash the defense that doesn't have those old big guys that the Saban era did have.
I mean, I get it. I wouldn't want to play Jalen Miller right off the bat. Like, yeah, he has mistakes, but this guy can and turn it around in a heartbeat. I'd rather play, an ASU being Notre Dame. But, I mean, in this one game scenario, I mean, Big 12, ASU or Iowa State could beat you. All you have to do is win one game.
Well, just seeing how USC's wide receivers torch Notre Dame, and you want to put them up against Ryan Williams, no thank you. I don't want to see that anywhere near a Notre Dame football field because he is one of the best, if not arguably the best wide receiver in college football this year. Travis Hunter, maybe, but again, if you're putting Travis Hunter just as a wide receiver, he's not a Heisman Trophy winner, but that's another conversation.
Yeah, he might be a better receiver if that's all I had to focus on.
And I'm going to throw something out to you Notre Dame fans. The one team you should be rooting for this week is UNLV. Because then UNLV would get the group of 5, would be in, and you probably would play UNLV right off the bat. Because Boise State would be out as the group of 5 champ, and UNLV would be the Mountain West champ.
I think they also have to root for.
We're already ahead of Boise, right? Oh no, Boise's in the top 4, right?
Right now, yes.
They're in the top 4. Okay. No, then I think the Big 12.
Yeah, then the Big 12 would get the bye, and the Mountain West champ would be in because you get one group of 5.
But we'd still be in the same situation there because the 10 would replace the 4.
I'm telling you, Penn State's going to lose. You're going to get the 5.
Okay, if that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I would. State
so we want Oregon. We want Clemson.
Penn State winning.
Yeah. We want.
But anything can happen.
Joe, were you going to say something?
No, I was just trying to get it all the teams I got to cheer for this weekend in my head.
Well, Georgia, Texas will go either way, but I think we definitely want Oregon and we definitely want Clemson.
Well, speaking of that, let's start the Paradise Parlay. We're running a little behind, but we're having some great conversation. I'm just getting lost in it. Starting off with the Mountain West Championship, Boise State UNLV. The spread here is Boise State -4. Over-under is 58.5. Money line is Boise State -180. UNLV +150. Russ, kick us off.
I got Boise State around. I picked it right off the bat as they're going to win the group, be the best group of 5. Boise State's going to win the over. Ashton Genty's exciting. I want to see him.
That's right. You were the one who picked Boise State to get the group of 5 bid starting the season. I remember that. Joe.
Yeah, I'm with Russ. I'm taking Boise State, all of them, and I'm going to just take the over.
Dano.
Boise, they have by far the best player. They have by far the best player. They're going to win and cover.
Yeah,
and a great guy, too. I mean, a guy who got offered a lot of money to leave, and he said, no, I want to stay in Boise. I
respect that. That's cool. I didn't know that. Who offered him?
I don't know off the bat, but he said he got a couple offers with high money offers, and he decided he wanted to stay with his teammates.
I like that. Stick with your school. Yeah.
More of that because you stay loyal and you're about to go to New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremony next week based off of your loyalty and how you played this year. He's been a one-man wrecking crew, but we got to give some love to his offensive line who blocks for him too. Fantastic group there up front. I am with everybody here. Boise's going to crush him, most likely. He's going to have one last big statement to try and close the gap between him and Hunter. I don't think it's going to close all the way. It'll get closer, but he's going to have a huge performance, and Boise State will win this easily.
I mean, you got to give credit to UNLV, too. I mean, to be in the Mountain West Championship game with all that story they had about their quarterback leaving with the NIL, and they still find a way to get to the Mountain West Championship game. That's pretty impressive.
Facts. Big 12 championship game, Arizona State, Iowa State. ASU is a 2.5-point favorite. Over-under here is 51. ASU minus 135 money line. ISU plus 114. Starting with Dano.
I'm going to go ISU straight up. Just because I think one of these things is going to get weird, and I could see that one getting the most weird because I don't know enough about either team, really. So I'm actually going to bet on them money line, probably.
All right. This is really a coin flip game. Both teams have been very impressive, but also very lackluster at certain points in the season. I just feel like Arizona State's the hotter team right now. Iowa State had to go through the grinder that was Kansas a couple weeks ago, and that really humbled them. They did win their way back up into the rankings. Hoping for one last shot at this. This is their first 10-win season in school history, by the way. Very impressive.
Cyclones.
I just feel like Arizona State's the hotter team, the better team right now, and they're really gassed up, fired up, ready to go. So give me Sun Devils money line, give me the under, and I'll take the spread with ASU. Joe.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Dano here. I think that one of these games is going to be kind of a surprise, and I think this will be the one that will be. So I have ISU, and I'm going to also take the over because it's the Big 12.
Russ, I feel like I know who you're going to pick, but go ahead.
You don't have to say it. I'm going Iowa State. I'm going with Rocco Beck,
Really?
son of former Jet Anthony Beck. Let's go Cyclones.
Do you have a allegiance to Iowa State?
No, dude, I'm a Jets fan, and I hate ASU.
Okay.
I'm an Arizona fan. I hate ASU. I'm never rooting for ASU.
Oh, you're Arizona and Jets. Okay, I got it.
Arizona's just,
Well, what's your main team?
for Arizona, but I love college football. SEC football is the way to go. But Arizona, I'll follow them. Had a shit year, but our defense sucked.
Lost a great coach.
Great coach, a lot of wide receivers. So, unfortunately, we got our ass kicked by SU, so that's never fun.
And they, so I didn't know I was rubbing it in your face when I mentioned the pitchfork.
It's all good.
It's been a long time since Dano's been on the show, so
yeah, I don't care. I've literally told all these guys I am from Southern California. I don't root for one single team in the state, and I hate a lot of them.
Kings?
I don't care. I don't care if you don't like. I'll root for. I'm a Jets and Yankees fan. People are like, I'm not rooting for the Yankees. I'm like, I don't care if you don't root with me. You can root against me all you want. I don't care. Have your own opinion. I'm fine with that. I don't take offense.
ACC Championship, SMU Clemson. The Ponies are favorites by 2.5 here. Over-under is 55.5. SMU money line minus 135. Clemson plus 114. Sounds very familiar. I feel like this is a common theme with Vegas. Starting with Joe.
I'm rooting for Clemson, so I hope for the upset. So Clemson all the way.
Yeah, with this one, I'm just thinking Clemson is going to say, you're not coming into our conference and winning our conference in your first year. You can say the same with what's happening in the Big Ten, the SEC, and the Big 12. But Clemson just has that ACC pride written all over them. I feel like they're going to come out with the biggest swing that they've got all year, and they are going to topple them. So give me Clemson to cover the spread. I'm going to go with the over because they're just going to show out their dominance and run all over SMU, and I'll take the Tigers' money line. Dano.
I didn't think about that before. I didn't realize that 3 of these conferences have new teams that could win it, right? Texas, SMU, Oregon. That's insane. I didn't think about that. But even if I wasn't rooting for Clemson for Notre Dame, I would have bet on Clemson. They have a better roster and a significant coach who's won a lot of big games with a lot of ACC pride, as you put up. So I'm going Clemson.
Russ.
As much, I'm going to go SMU. I think they're the hotter team. Clemson's going down, so I think they cover. I'll take the over, and obviously with the money line, I think SMU is a great story. I do think it's going to be a great game. I don't think Dabo's not going to roll around, so I wouldn't be surprised if Clemson wins. I'm fine if Alabama gets in. I want the best product. I don't care about If we get 4 SEC teams in there, that's fine with me. I want the best product. I want the best games. I don't care about that bias. Like, give me the best product on the field. That's what I want.
Do you think that Clemson barely lost to South Carolina, right? Who a team you guys are super high on? That's what makes you think they could definitely. Do you think SMU would play them that close, South Carolina?
I think it'd be fun at the very least because both teams know how to score. But as we think about that, the Big Ten championship game, Oregon, Penn State, maybe not who we expected to be there in the first week of the season, but hey, here we are. Oregon's a 3.5-point favorite. Over under here is 49.5. The money line is Oregon minus 170, PSU plus 142. Russ, kick us off.
I got Oregon across the board in the over.
Joe.
Yeah, Oregon's going to curb stop Penn State.
Dano.
Excuse me.
I think Oregon wins by 15, 20 plus, or Penn State barely wins. Is kind of how I could see it going. But I'd go Oregon rolls.
I'm with everybody here. Oregon is going to murder Penn State, and I mean with a capital M. This is not going to be
3.5 points. That's it.
This is not going to be pretty. No, 3.5 points is the spread right now. Yeah,
where's that game? Indianapolis.
It's Indianapolis.
Well, that may give Penn State slight advantage, but it's the dome, right? It's not going to be cold. I don't know.
Right. It's indoors. Oregon already went to the state of Indiana this year, so they know what it's like to play on the road in the Big Ten, at least halfway through the Big Ten. So that's why I'm just going with the Ducks. Very easy.
Oregon didn't go to Indiana.
No, they went to Purdue. I said the state of Indiana.
Purdue. Forgot Purdue had a team.
They also went to the state of Michigan.
We played that. Yeah. Who's worse, Purdue or Florida State? Who would win that game?
Florida State.
Florida State did win their FCS game to get to 2 wins. Somehow they beat Cal. I don't know how Cal loses that game. But, yeah, I would probably go with Florida State as well. But in a very, very low, like 7-3 game. Or 7-0. I'll get to why in a minute. SEC Championship, last one here. Texas, Georgia. We meet again. Texas is a 2.5-point favorite in Atlanta. 49 over under. Texas minus 130. Money line. UGA plus 110. Now, I get it. This is supposed to be a neutral site game, but let's be real. The game is in Atlanta. It's going to be 75-25 Georgia fans, most likely. I know Texas fans travel well, but you just can't fight the dominance that Georgia has in the city of Atlanta because it's in their own state. For that reason, I don't know why Texas is a 2.5-point favorite here. I feel like Georgia should be the favorite for that reason. I think that Georgia's going to do it again. There'll be a field goal to maybe a 10-point win, so I'll definitely have Georgia covering, of course, and then I'll have the under because these defenses are improving a lot. It sans what happened against Georgia Tech. They're going to be gassed up for this. So UGA across the board for me. Joe.
I'm taking Texas. I think you're not going to lose twice to the team. And Georgia had the perfect script first game. I don't see that happening again. I think Texas makes adjustments. And I think it's since it is in Georgia, I think that gives them a little credit. But the stadium, SEC is going to probably do 50-50, 60-40 probably. So there'll probably be more Texas fans than you think. I think it'll be a good game, but I have Texas.
Dano.
So this one is a tricky one to figure out who we should root for because I feel like if Oregon crushes Penn State, Georgia beats Texas, I could see Texas getting that 5 seed. If that happens, right? So that could affect us. I think they'd put Texas above us. They really do. Really keep that. But then if that doesn't happen, then you kind of want to go the other way around. But I think Georgia's going to win. I don't know why. I would. It's a 2.5 point spread. You said
2.5 point spread.
I would just stay away from this one. Would be my advice. Just enjoy the game. It could be a really good game, but I don't know.
Russ, close us out.
Yeah, I got Texas. I think it's just really tough to beat a team 2 times in the same year, same calendar year. So I got Texas covering and with the money line in the over.
All right, very easy. One last look at the Heisman race before the winners announced this Saturday on ESPN. Travis Hunter is a heavy favorite here, minus 10,000 to win it. Ashton Genty at this very moment, plus 2,000. And anyone else is a plus $50,000 shot. So at this point, I guess the question is, are there going to be more than 2 people in New York, Russ?
There'll be 3.
And who's that third person?
Cam Ward.
All right, Joe. Yes, no, and if so, who?
Yeah, they will. I think they always have at least 3, and yeah, I'm if they do, it'll be Cam Ward.
Dano?
Yeah, it's going to be Riley Leonard. If he didn't lose that NIU game, I think he'd actually be in the running for it.
Right, the kicker lost it.
Stats. But no, I think probably Cam Ward. I really think Travis Hunter will and should win it because it's just, it's just a different kind of – he's the best player. He does everything. So
it's just kind of cool to not see a quarterback in line to win it this year, like most of the years. Of course, we've had the Devontae Smiths, the Derrick Henrys of the world. But this is going to be cool to see half defensive, half wide receiver player win it. Potentially, I got to say that for now. Or a running back.
A running back from a smaller school. Yeah.
That too.
What was the last group of 5 person to win? I'm sure it happened back in the day, but
Yeah, Houston wasn't a group of 5 back then, but who was it? And Andre Ward won it for Houston, if that counts as like a mid-major. But that was the Southwest.
I was thinking non-major school. They're both cool stories. So.
Right. Roger Staubach, if you want to count Navy, that goes way, way back.
With that,
Yeah. And our wrap up here, stat of the day. After an absolute beatdown, 66-0 by in-state rival Indiana, Purdue football finished their season 1-11, as we've mentioned several times tonight. The other day, I saw a stat that blew my mind. If Purdue had a 34-point handicap to start each game, they'd still only be 6-6. Notable losses that Purdue had: 66-7 to Notre Dame, 52-6 to Wisconsin, 35-0 Oregon, 45-0 Ohio State, 49-10 to Penn State, and of course 66-0 to Indiana. What I found very interesting too is using that exact same stat, 0-12 Kent State, the worst record in the FBS, they'd be 8-4. That just goes to show you who's really the worst team in the FBS this year. Is it Kent State 0-12, or is it Purdue, who only beat Indiana State in week 0?
Will the Kent State play Indiana State?
No.
Perfect.
Yep. And now we're going to wrap it up with our cheers of the week here. Starting off with me, I got to say, family time is time that you may never get again. You've got to cherish it every second. And I've learned as I've gotten older that we're not here forever. We've got to savor every moment because life just flies by so quickly. So I'm really glad that I got to go home to Houston and spend it with all 5 members of my family. First time we've been together for 2.5 years. Fantastic weekend. Thanks to my dad, everybody who put it on. Russ.
Yeah, I'm going to go negative and go way to F this up, Pac-12. You got the number 1 team in the nation. You got Arizona State vying for the top 12. Way to mess it up.
Joe.
No, I mean, Justin, you said it. There's only one thing to really cheers to, and that's Thanksgiving, spending time with the family, eating a lot of food, getting drunk. Nothing else better.
And Dano.
I'm going to cheers to us hosting probably the first ever college football playoff game.
There we go.
Most exciting things.
College football in the snow, potentially. And that'll do it for this week's episode of Touchdown to Paradise here in the Fins Talk Sports Network. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, comments, and all that jazz. I'm Justin.
I'm Russ.
I'm Joe.
Dano.
Special thanks to Dano for being here once again. And
Great.
you guys all be good. Have a great week.